All right, so this is huge. Trump just announced a plan to eliminate the IRS and get rid of federal income tax completely. So imagine getting your paycheck without any federal taxes taken out. Sounds great, right? But there's always a catch. Here's the catch. Instead of collecting income taxes, the government will raise tariffs on imported goods to make up for the lost revenue. But what does that mean for you? Well, let's break it down today in this video. So let's start with what this plan really means. So right now, the IRS collects about $5.1 trillion in income taxes every year. And out of that 5.1, they only refund about $500 billion. So that means that the government keeps around $4.6 trillion from American workers. Under Trump's new plan that he's proposing, you wouldn't see any federal taxes taken from your paycheck anymore. And instead, what that really means is that the government would try to replace that lost money by taxing imports through higher tariffs. What's a tariff? We'll get to here in a second. But basically, instead of paying the government directly, the cost will be built into the prices of the goods that you buy. So especially from products that come from countries like China, Canada, and Europe. And so yes, you may have a higher paycheck because of no taxes, but you may have to pay more for maybe goods that you buy anyways. But let's talk about a little bit about tariffs. We've heard this, we probably heard it a lot during the campaign trail, so we probably need to know what it is, right? So tariffs are basically taxes on imported goods. So let's say that the US imports a ton of clothing, electronics, and food from overseas. Right now, some of those products already have tariffs on them, but under this plan, really, you could see those tariffs increase by 30% or more, which is a huge increase for a product that's coming in from overseas. But the idea is that higher tariffs would make foreign products more expensive, which means pushing companies to manufacture more here in the US, which is really, I think the idea of this whole thing is to keep things here locally and domestically. So in theory, what this could mean is that there could be more American jobs, but in reality, it could also mean higher prices for everyday goods because let's be real, not everything can be made in the US overnight, so we're probably still gonna have to rely on some goods that are not inside the United States. But I think here's the real potential problem that we may be facing with all of this. It's inflation. It's a word that we hear a lot, but it's really essentially something that really never really goes away. So if tariffs do go up, the cost of imported essentials like food, clothing, electronics will rise too. And that means that higher prices at the store for you. So you hear people going crazy about eggs going up. This is why is inflation. So let's think about it. Phones, laptops, TVs, more expensive. Clothes and shoes, more expensive. Groceries could go up if we rely on imported foods, but all of these things, they could become more expensive for you. Even though you may be keeping more of your paycheck, it might end up that you end up spending more on everyday items. So would you actually be saving money, or would it all balance on the end and essentially be a wash of your money because you may be gaining money, but you still have to spend more when you go to the grocery store. So let's take a step back. Let's look at the taxes that we already pay because income tax is not the only one. I know that's the one that a lot of people hear about, but there's so many other taxes that we need to look at. So let's look at a quick breakdown of each one. So the first one is going to be our income taxes, which is typically what gets taken out from your paycheck. Up next, we have the payroll tax. So this is what your employers pay on top of wages. And then we have capital gains tax. So this is taxes on anything that you profit from. So it may be stocks, crypto, maybe a real estate sale that you have. And then next, following that, we have property taxes. So this is what homeowners pay each year on their home. Then we have sales tax. So this is what you pay when you buy something. Regardless of what city you're in, you're going to pay sales tax. Then we have sin tax, which is going to be extra taxes on alcohol, tobacco, gambling. It's pretty high actually as well. And then lastly, we have tariffs, which are taxes that we talked about on imported goods. So if the income tax disappears, tariffs will become a major government revenue source and prices are going to reflect that. We're going to see it in other items that we may buy. So let's talk a little bit about the good and the bad of this plan, what the pros are, what the cons are. I think obviously the biggest is going to be you keep 100% of your paycheck because there's no federal income tax. Next we have, it could push businesses to actually manufacture here, which could create more jobs here in the United States. And if it's done right, it might actually reduce reliance on foreign goods. But of course, if there's pros, there's going to be cons. So the cons I'm thinking that'll be in this plan is going to be higher tariffs, which means higher prices on essential goods that we may have to buy. And then the other thing is going to be if tariffs don't generate enough money, that means the national debt could increase as well. Lastly, we've got low-income Americans might struggle since most of the things that they rely on are going to be cheaper imported goods. And so we need to make sure that we pay attention to those things as we weigh the pros and cons. You know, we may be like, oh, no income tax, but there are cons to this plan that we're kind of looking at. And this is why some people may love this idea, while others may think it could be a disaster, right? Because so many things can happen, so many things can affect our life with this tax plan. And so we need to be prepared for what life could look like if it is approved. But I think one of the biggest selling points of this plan is actually bringing back jobs to the United States. I think it's important that we kind of look at what that could be the biggest selling point and why Trump actually wants to make this happen. But he wants everything to be domestic. He wants things to be here. And he wants to make it less profitable for companies to be able to import goods and more profitable for people to be able to produce things here in the United States. But I think here's the issue. Manufacturing in the U.S. is really not a great idea sometimes because it's actually more expensive. It takes time to rebuild maybe a factory or maybe rebuild industries that are moved overseas. You would have to find a way to get them back over here. And if they're also still making money there and they're making their products there, prices may still become high because labor is higher here. You have to pay people a little bit more. Production costs are more expensive here versus places like China or Europe when you can pay a little bit less, or even Mexico as well, where you can pay a little bit less for the labor and production costs there. And so for a business, sometimes it's just not that simple to just do things here in America. So at the end of the day, this plan sounds great on paper. Who wouldn't want to stop paying income taxes? But I think the big question that we have to ask ourselves is, will the extra money in your paycheck be worth the higher prices at the store? Because essentially it could just end up being a wash and you may just end up keeping more money, but you still have to pay more when you go buy the items that you need. So what do you think? Would you rather keep 100% of your paycheck and deal with higher prices on goods? Or would you rather keep income tax and keep your imports cheaper? Drop your comments down below and let me know what your thoughts are about this tax plan and what you think it could do for you. So if you found this video helpful, tap in with the channel by subscribing below and make sure you share it with a friend. And if you want to check out more videos, check out these.